I've been asked this question so many times, and I promised that I would do a video on it. So this is that video, finally. I'm going to show you how to use various types of microphones properly, mostly condenser microphones of some type. It's 761% nerdy stuff, and it's coming right up. So, good day, and welcome to the Time Preservation Society. I'm Bill the Butcher Cutting. So I've done some videos showing how to digitally record, how to choose the right microphone, how to achieve good audio for YouTube, and many more. Those videos were released mostly back in 2023, which was John Wick 4 and Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves ago. But I'm often asked, where do I point my boom mics? What's the best distance away from a condenser mic and other such queries? For this video, we will only talk about small and large diaphragm condenser microphones, including shotgun microphones. Before we begin, I'm going to talk abstractly about math, but don't worry, it's not boring. Actually, I think it would be better explained by our resident scientist, Dr. Stedman.
Thank you very much, the recordist. I'll try to be brief and easy to understand. Well, let's get right to business. When it comes to physics, there's a very well-known law called the inverse square law. In science, an inverse square law is any scientific law stating that specified physical quantity is inversely proportional to the square of the distance from the source of that physical quantity.
Could you say that in English, Dr. Stedman?
In English, that means if the distance between an object and the energy source is doubled, it receives only a quarter as much energy. If the distance is tripled, only 1/9. In acoustics, the inverse square law states that the intensity of sound decreases by approximately 6 decibels for each doubling of distance from the sound source. On the other hand, the opposite is true when you move closer to the source. So for each doubling of distance from a sound source, the sound pressure level decreases by approximately 6 decibels. That's 25% of the original level. Or if you get closer by double, the sound pressure level increases by 400%. And that's a lot. Too much if you want a uniform sound. Well, back to you, buddy.
Thanks, Dr. Stedman. So if you're moving around and recording your voice, and you begin at a distance of, say, 3 inches from the microphone, and you back off from the mic by 3 inches while you're talking, your signal level will drop by 6 decibels, which is 1/4 the previous volume. That's significant and rather noticeable. So if I was recording at, I can't even get to 3 inches here, and then I backed off 3 inches here, you could see how much difference that is. So it's always preferred to start and end from the same position, within reason, to achieve a uniform recording. And because doubling the distance results in 1/4 the energy, starting from 3 inches away from the microphone restricts your movements greatly. You'd only be able to move back an inch or so before it's very noticeable. So best to start at a distance that you know you have a little freedom with if you intend to be rather animated. So you might be thinking, I'll just stay back 2 feet from the mic and that'll be easy. Not so fast, champ. You've got a couple of other factors to factor in, namely noise and room sound. The further from the mic you are, the more the preamp volume must be raised to compensate in order to achieve the desired decibel level for optimum recording. If you're using a dynamic mic, say, then many preamps will not be able to adequately amp your signal to usable levels, since they tend to have a very low output. And when you crank up that preamp when you're far, far away to get that optimal number, you're introducing an insane amount of noise. Plus, most commercially available preamps will have difficulty with pushing that in dynamic mics. The other factor is the room sound. The further away from the mic you are, the more of the room you'll hear in the recording. Too much room sound is often a sign of amateur recording, but that always depends on the effect you're going for.
Oh, come on. Really?
See, now, that was a good use of excessive room sound. When you're close to the mic, the room sound is also there, but it's completely covered up by the sound of your voice before it has a chance to bounce off the walls like a 4-year-old after consuming 5 packages of Fun Dip. So then, what's the optimal distance? Generally speaking, for spoken word or singing applications such as podcasts or a song, with a cardioid condenser mic, about 8 inches to a foot from the mic is an acceptable amount depending on the intended effect. For a more intimate sound with a cardioid mic, getting really close to it increases the proximity effect, which adds a lot of low-end response and minimizes the sound of your room, if you notice. Billie Eilish is known for using the proximity effect to her advantage, causing that intimate, in-your-face whisper sound to her vocals. But this video is about spoken word and not music. Anyway, proximity effect. If you use the proximity effect, you'll want to stay in that position for the duration of the recording to maintain even recording levels, or else you could, do another track and then re-level everything to do other parts if needed. But that's another thing. Of course, if you don't stay in that position, you can try to fix that in post by automating and riding the fader or using other options, but it doesn't always sound great, and professional level audio recording is all about getting the best sound first. Remember, shart in, shart out. The less you have to do in post, the better. Fixing it in post is never as easy or as smooth as some film directors think it is. But I digress. So super close to the mic increases that low end, as we've talked about. But for a more even sound with less low end, but some of the room sound included, 8 inches to a foot will do the trick. The closer to the mic you get, the less the room sound you'll hear, and the less you'll need to drive your preamp to achieve optimal levels, and the more low end increase you'll get. But the closer you are, the more you'll also get plosives. Always something, right? Regardless of how much you're not worried about plosives, worry about plosives. I've done so many great audio takes that have been completely ruined by plosives that I didn't hear at the time of recording. Always use a pop filter with large and especially with small diaphragm condenser mics, and also for dynamic mics if they're not already built in, just in case. So for cardioid pattern small and large diaphragm condenser mics, and for dynamic mics, it's a balancing act. Really, you got to find that medium in there for you. If your room is reverberant and sounds bad, you'll need to fix your room. Or you'll have to get real close to the mic and pop filter the crap out of it, and then use a high-pass filter in post to remove some of that low end if needed. As far as axis, here's something. Try to point the front of the mic, or at least the addressing side of the mic, towards your mouth, so that the center of the capsule or cartridge is facing your mouth from any angle. Like this. No matter where I move the mic around this, 90-degree field, I have the capsule pointed towards my mouth. This will ensure a clear sound, and by staying on axis but moving to the side a bit, you can combat plosives easier, just like I'm doing right here. It's good 45 right here. So 90 was wrong. So 45. Around 45 degrees around, pointing at your mouth hole. So this one here is 45, and I'm breathing my breath this way just in case there's a pop filter. Stedman PS101. Love it. And this is what I'm doing right now. And it's catching my voice just fine. I don't need to face it. I can if I want, because there's a pop filter there. But this is really optimal for making sure you're not plosiving the crap out of this. However, if you have a really sibilant mic, like the Rode NT1A, that piece of shit, you can do a little trick to quell the sibilance. Twisting the mic slightly to one side off axis, so this would be kind of off axis here, so that the mic points to the side by just a little bit, will add a little bit of controlled off axis coloration, and it'll cut the sharp sibilance. So if the mic is pointing at you, pointing it slightly away from you, right? The capsule being, parallel to your your flat face, and you want to point that capsule slightly sideways, right? So if you do that, do it just a little. Don't do it too much, because it'll sound far away if you do it too much. But that's a little sibilant mic trick. Now on to boom mics. So let's switch mics right now in my head. Oh, there we go. For boom mics, it's a different story altogether. And this is a topic that many novice recordists get wrong. Right now, I've switched over to a boom mic. Currently, you're listening to the Sennheiser MKH416 boomed above my head. But a lot of people that aren't into audio or are just starting out think that the mic is pointing to the top of the subject's head. A lot of people get that wrong. This is likely due to seeing movie set behind-the-scenes photos or footage from weird angles. It's very hard to determine where the mic is actually pointing to as seen from many angles. But in actuality, it's pointing right here. I'll explain. With a mic like the 416, it's very important to point the mic precisely where you want it, because it has a very unforgiving pickup beam. It's very narrow, and anything outside of its field of sensitivity, that I like to call beam because it's easier to visualize, becomes dull and lifeless. This is called off-axis coloration, and it really sucks if you aren't on target with the 416. So if you're off target, it sounds really bad, right? It sounds totally different. It's almost impossible to correct this in post because the boom op is tracking a moving target, and if they're not always on target, they'll go in and out of that field of sensitivity and cause noticeable intermittent off-axis coloration. This is one reason the 416 might be abandoned in favor of more modern options such as the Sennheiser 8060 or the Schoeps CMIT 5U or the Sanken CS1. But with an experienced and talented boom op, the 416 is not only great, but it has been used on thousands of major motion pictures and continues to be used on movies to this day, and will continue to for years, I'm sure. Anyway, due to the fear of potential subject movement and to play it safe for head movements, the idea is to aim the mic here, not here. You want to go here. This is kind of a trick. This way, when the heads turn and bob up and down, there's minimal random off-axis coloration since you're on the edge of it all along. So how close should you get? Well, you should get as close to the subject as you can and as pointed in front of the subject as you can, while staying out of the frame. For sit-down interviews or talking head videos like I'm doing right now, you'll want to try for as close to the subject as possible but completely out of the frame while pointing at the upper chest throat area of the subject. This is usually a 45-degree angle. Today's number is 45, as it turns out. This is usually a 45-degree angle. It's not on top of the head. You just have to go high to stay out of frame, but back enough that you're not pointing at the front of the head where the face usually resides and not the top. So just to say this in English, in case that was a little bit blabber, if you could put the mic right in front, that would be great. But of course, that blocks the camera. So what you want to do is bring it above. So the mic is right here. And you want to keep it as in front as possible, pointing right here. Right about here. Anywhere around here is good, right? And that turns out to be, well, it's about 45 degrees, just like the lighting is. Sometimes you can boom from underneath, but it's not ideal, and I'll go into that in another video. It all depends on the lens used and the frame. If you want to get into location sound, understanding lenses and how cameras work is gold. That way you can communicate with the DP, on the director of photography, on what lens is used and have a pretty good idea what you'll need to do and where you'll need to be. As a boom op or a mixer, you might also get a camera feed to show you the frame in real time. But on a set, you'll need to worry about a lot of other stuff as well, such as where lighting is so you're not casting shadows, and where lighting is so you're not tripping over it, and many more literal on-set hurdles. But for the purposes of this video, let's imagine you're just doing a talking head video of yourself or someone else. So that's what I'm doing. The current distance from the mic to myself measures... Oh, let me just find my trusty old measuring tape here. You know, this measuring tape was manufactured by T1000 in 2029. I picked it up from T800 back in 91. Anyway, it measures about 1.5 feet away. That's how far away the mic is right now. Here is the side view of what I'm doing right now. I'm using a C-stand with a boom arm to hold the mic on a shock mount. C-stands are where it's at. Indispensable for any and all video and filmmaking. Really. So you can see that the mic is pretty close to me and where it's pointing. You see that it's pointing here. That's where I'm going right now. You see that? Yeah. Pointing at this area allows me to move around a bit and, you know, talk to you over there or talk to you over here and not cause massive, obvious changes to the sound. This is the part of the video that a lot of my viewers wanted to see, how I'm booming this. So that's how I'm doing it right now. You're watching it live. This same method applies to any boomed mic ever, not just a shotgun. You can use a small diaphragm condenser the exact same way. I've done this exact method on this channel many times with the Line Audio CM4s, the Octava MK012s, the DD S-Mic 2, and even the Slate ML2s. Same deal, point at the upper chest throat area and get as close as you can without being in the frame. The 45-degree angle also helps with any potential plosives, but many recordists and boom ops will opt for using a foam filter like I have right here on the mics anyway, especially if they're moving the boom pole around. Motion causes wind, you see. Wind. Also, some mics that are sibilant sound much better with the foam filter on, like the 416 on some occasions. Anyway, that is how you boom a subject or yourself properly for talking head videos. So, what did we learn today? Absolutely nothing if you're already a working audio professional. But if you're new, then we learned to find that balancing point between distance, room sound, preamp noise, and plosive control. We learned a fancy scientific term called the inverse square law that you can use in front of others to impress them and be all fancy and stuff. How to cut sibilance by moving the mic a little off axis. How to properly boom a subject from above. And maybe some other stuff that I've already forgotten because, you know, I forget things. So that just about does it for this video. I hope you've learned some cool stuff to help you on your audio journey. Remember, sound makes up 80% of a movie and an astounding 100% of an audiobook. 100%. Remember that. Oh, and that, my friends, is the minority vote. Bye now. And transmission. Yes. Yes, look at me from this angle. Well now, in this angle. It's just quite. 2 cameras. Good. Watch these other videos. Watch them. They're good. Watch them. Watch them.